Hi everyone, this is Debbie with Book and BuJo. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you are new. I'm so glad to have you here. Please join me for my mid-month check-in. What have I read so far in March, and what do I still need to read before the end of the month to complete my TBR? And all of the Readathons that I'm participating in. Well, let's go ahead and get started and see what I've read. The first book that I read in March was Awakening of the Seer by E. Holmes, and this is the third book in the Gateway Tracker series, and I loved it. It was really good. I'm so glad I got back into that world because I do really enjoy the series. It's paranormal romance, and it's a great kind of palate cleanser, popcorn read in amongst all of the fantasy that I'm reading. Next I read, which was not on my TBR, but it was for a readathon, and that is Two Can Play by Allie Hazelwood, and I just thought it was so cute. There is some miscommunication trope in there a little bit, which I typically do not like. This one I didn't mind, actually, but keep that in mind if you're going to get into this one. It is an audiobook only, and it's about 4 hours, so it's super short, but very fun. It's about two people who are game designers, and they at one point meet, and then there's of course the miscommunication that happens, and they meet again later, and yeah, just super cute. And then I finished, and this one is on my TBR as well as the first book, Awakening of the Seer, but I read Broken. So this one is a set of the first 4 books. So I finished Broken, which is the 4th book and the last one in the ones that I own, by Rachel Humphrey Daigle, and it's the Fated saga. I think there's 11 books total, but I only owned the first 4. So if I happen upon the rest of the series, then I will read it. If not, I'm not going to go out of my way. It is a YA, and it's about 2 twins that grow up, and they kind of have this little secret that for some reason they can talk to each other in their minds. So if Colin is thinking something, then his sister can kind of hear it in her mind, and vice versa. And their parents passed away when they were little, and so they live with their uncle, and every year they go to this campground and hang out with all the other people who are there for the summer. That's usually the same people, and so it's just a lot of fun. But then they realize that they have magic, and a whole nother adventure and journey awaits them as they start to grow up. So we start with them, I want to say 13, and I think each book kind of is like the next year, so it's 1 year of their lives. And as like middle grade or lower YA, I think this would be great for them. Next up, I read my first NetGalley book, and that was Colliders by Steve Foley. Now, originally, I was supposed to read Coup de Grace by Paul L. Centeno, but February 28th was his last day, so I wasn't able to get that one, so then I had to find another one, and I ended up finding Colliders by Steve Foley, and that was really interesting. I liked it. It's a sci-fi, and some scientists have been working on this project, but they're just like pushing through and not necessarily thinking about the implications or some of the cons of what may happen if they get their project to work. And then there's this other group of scientists that kind of started on the project and have then backed away because they don't agree with them not putting as many safety precautions in place as they think they should, and so they're trying to shut them down. And it was really interesting. And the audiobook narrator, I know some people has some issues with him because he's more of a monotone, but it made me think of like the old PI TV series from back in like the 40s and 50s, and like the Dick Tracy kind of thing. And so he read it more in a monotone, kind of like those TV series were. And so I just thought it was really fun and kind of nostalgic because my parents loved watching those, and kind of like the old radio show programs. And so for me, I thought it was great. I thought the way he read it was perfect. Although just keep that in mind because not everybody enjoyed that style. And then next, for the Irish Readathon, I read The Arctic Incident, and this is the second book in the Artemis Fowl series by Owen Colfer, and I loved it. I liked seeing how Artemis Fowl, how his character grows and changes through the first and the second book, and I love all the characters. They were so much fun, just a cute middle grade. And next, I read one of my favorite books so far. It's not necessarily like 5-star, like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing book, but just the nostalgia vibes, and I loved the dynamic of the characters and just all of the references, and that was Seeking Jake Ryan. So 16 Candles is one of my favorite movies. I do like Pretty in Pink and Breakfast Club just a little bit more. And as a little aside, my library, you can take a take a puzzle to the library and leave it, and then take one home. So if you bring two, you can take two, that kind of thing. And I found this puzzle there. It was so much fun. It's the Breakfast Club. I'm so excited to do this one. It's only a 500-piece puzzle, and the puzzle pieces aren't super small. They're kind of big, but I'm so excited. I can't wait to do that one. Anyway, Seeking Jake Ryan, and this is the first book in the Dear Molly series. So, of course, she's writing to Molly Ringwald, who is the main character in 16 Candles, as well as Pretty in Pink and Breakfast Club. And it's by M.F. Lorson and Jessica Boocher? Not sure how to say the last name, but there we go. And I love this from start to finish. It's not the most amazing thing out there or anything, but it's that whole like guilty pleasure, popcorn read, just the nostalgia vibes in there, just touch my heart. And I do like all of the characters as well. They were really fun, and I think the writing style was easy to read, and I just love this. I would totally read it again. And then next, I read another book on my TBR, so both of those are on my TBR as well, and that was Jade City by Fonda Lee. I did finally read it, and my beautiful copy from the broken binding. And I really liked it. Didn't love it. Yeah, so I don't know if I'm quite on the hype train that everybody was just gushing about this book. I enjoyed it, and I will be very glad to read the next book in the series, but it's not a new favorite. But I did like it, and it fulfilled a couple of prompts for Readathons too, which was really nice. Urban fantasy helps with Ramathon, and it also worked for March Maverick Readathon from Keymark. Very good. Enjoyed it. 4 stars. So didn't really like it, but not a new favorite. Next, I did finish a book that I was supposed to read in January, and I finally read it this month, and that was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This one also worked for the Irish Readathon, and it is a award-winning book by an Irish author. And I did enjoy it. I'm glad I read it. It's not my typical style of book that I enjoy, but I did enjoy reading it. And then I read my second NetGalley book from my TBR, and that was Anything, the first book in the Mayberry University series by Kristen Welch. And I love that book. This one's a Christian romance. I loved it, and it was just heartwarming and heartbreaking as well. There are trigger warnings in this book. There was an attempted assault, but she got away. So just keep that in mind if that's something that's going to be triggering you. But I got teary-eyed a couple times in the book, and it was just so sweet. And I loved seeing the growth that happens with our main character, especially from the beginning to the end, as well as one of the other main characters. So good. Yeah, and there's some really good friendships in this book as well. It was only about a 7-hour audiobook, 7.5 hours, somewhere in there. So it was a quick, easy read as well. And the writing style was really good. And then next, another one from my TBR, I did finish My Friend the Murderer, and this is by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And it was kind of funny. So when I first was looking this up, and I saw the Kindle version on Goodreads, it said it was 288 pages. So I was like, oh, great. Okay, that'll be short, be nice. And when I pulled this one up, no, it's 26 pages. So the 288, it's a bunch of short stories in a collection, and not just this one story. So I read just this one story because that's what was on here. 26 pages. It was very interesting, and I liked that it had some references to some towns that I will be visiting soon, which is kind of fun as well. And it's so short, so I don't really want to give you a whole lot of details, but it takes place there's parts of it in Australia, there's parts of it in England. Quick, easy read, and entertaining. Next, I read the group book for the Spring into Readathon with Completely Melanie, and I read Out of Quiet Street by Serafina Nova Glass, and this one is kind of a mystery thriller. Very good. Not what I was expecting, and I really enjoyed it. There's a couple of twists at the very beginning, and there's a couple more that kind of come in the middle, and there's a couple things at the end. Oh man, it was good all the way throughout. Think kind of Desperate Housewives. Now, I've never seen that show, but the feel of Desperate Housewives is a little bit of what I get from this book. So we have kind of this neighborhood, and all of the people in the neighborhood, of course, interact. They kind of know each other. And for the most part, some of them, they kind of keep to themselves. And there's this mystery going on. And of course, the one neighbor who wants to know everybody and is just super bright and cheerful and a loving person kind of starts some things rolling, and then we get some twists and turns, and it's a fun ride. And then I can't believe it took me this long to read this book. I love the TV series. I thoroughly enjoyed the comics as well. And that is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. And this is the first book in the Expanse series. Loved it. Loved it. So good. Sci-fi, outer space, a band of hooligans. And there we go. So good. And I finally read the book for one of the book clubs. I think it's the Wellread Book Club with Carolyn Marie Reads. And I finally read it, and it was fine. Again, Shakespeare, for the most part, kind of goes over my head. Yeah. But I read Hamlet, and it's done. And I will be done with Shakespeare for a while. Although I do have to say, I did love Taming of the Shrew. That's one of my favorites, but otherwise... Next, I read another book for the Irish Readathon, which is, again, another book that has won an award by an Irish author, and that was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, and I definitely enjoyed it. I wasn't quite sure. There's a lot of hype around Sally Rooney, and so I wasn't sure if her writing style was going to be for me, but I loved it. I thought it was really good. It was very well written, and I loved all the characters. And then next, I got an art copy. I did finish it a little late. It came out on the 13th of March. But I absolutely loved Sort of a Valkyrie by Melanie Karsak. And again, this was an advanced reader's copy that I got from the author for free. And I love this series. It's the Vinland to Valhalla series. The first one is Heart of a Valkyrie, and the second book, hey, there we go, there's the cover. The second book is Sort of a Valkyrie, and it is so good. So we have people in Iceland that have, a lot of them have come from Norway and have now settled in Iceland. And there's some that keep hearing about the West. They want to go west. They keep, some people never come back, but others come back that say things about this lush green land. And so they all want to go to this green land, which they end up naming Greenland. And it's all the Norse mythology. And so we have the Allfather Odin, there's Thor. So a lot of the people in here, the beginnings of their names start with Thor. And it's funny because at the beginning, the author actually put something in there. She's like, I'm sorry for all of the Thor names, but that's what it was back then because everyone wanted to be named after Thor. And you have Frigga and Freya and Hel and Loki and all of them. Whole Norse mythology gang's all here. And we continue following Freydis, and her father is Eric the Red, who is kind of infamous for his brutality, and he's also a berserker, so that has been passed down to his children, which Freydis is one. And not necessarily the best father in the world, so yeah. So things happen. He gets remarried because her mother Aud, who was a vulva, who basically a seer or a prophetess who could see things in the future. But Aud has passed away, and now Eric the Red is going to remarry, and we got maybe some evil stepmother stuff going on, and Freydis has the sight, and so she ends up going to become a Githia. And then this is just the story of her after that, where she kind of goes in her life and some things that happen. And I just love this series. It is so easy to read. And I also love Melanie Karsak's other series. She has another one that I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head, but it's about the Valkyries. So good. I just love the Norse mythology. Is so interesting. And I loved all the characters, and seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly of each individual is really interesting as well. So I would totally check it out. Sort of a Valkyrie by Melanie Karsak. 5 stars. Now, the next book I read was supposed to be read last month for the Catch-Up Book Club, and it was supposed to be done by March 9th, which is when the live show was, but no, of course, I didn't start till the 14th. But I did finish it yesterday, and that was Valor by John Gwynne, the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. And it was kind of weird because I started reading this, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to need to recap on Malice. Like, I remembered nothing. I loved the book. I remember loving the book, but I couldn't remember any of the characters or anything that happened. It was very strange. So I decided, I'm just going to read and just see what comes back to me. And I still don't really remember anything from the first book, which is so weird because I really loved it. And I did really like this one as well. It's a little bit different. There's a lot of journeying. There's a lot of combat and battles and things like that. And it kind of goes back and forth between the different perspectives. So it kind of like ends in a spot where you're like, ooh, I want to know more, but then it goes to a different perspective and you're kind of like, ooh, the same thing, and then a different perspective and you're like, ooh, what's happening with them? And then it goes back and then kind of like finishes up each of those, which is kind of fun. It kept you from getting bored, or not that this is in any way a boring book, but it kept you engaged and turning the page because you didn't want to read just one more chapter. No, I got to read this next section of chapters. But it was very good. I definitely enjoyed it. I guess you could also say this is kind of a March wrap up because I read so many books already in March. Very exciting. Especially since I read hardly anything in February. I think I read 8 books, 11, somewhere there. Not very much for me. Okay, so that is all the books that I have finished so far in March. So let's go ahead and check my TBRopoly page and see what I got going here. That page is complete. So we have Jade City, Anything, Awakening the Seer, Hamnet, Seeking Jake Ryan, Broken, and My Friend the Murderer. So I did finish all of those. And then the last rolls that I had here, we had Colliders, Leviathan Wakes, The Arctic Incident, and Beautiful World, Where Are You? And so I have completed my TBRopoly TBR already, and it's only March 19th. I still have quite a few days left in the month. So what am I going to finish reading? Well, let's see. We have a Readathon. So we had to have thing in the title and a book on the cover, and I am currently reading The Library of Lost Things, and that is by Laura Taylor Namey, and I am about halfway through, and I am loving it. So good. It is so cute, and it's a totally different kind of story. The storyline itself is, the trope is kind of similar, but the contents around that are not anything I've read before, which is kind of interesting, and I'm very enjoying it. Can't wait. So as soon as I finish doing this video, I'm going to listen to the rest of it. TBR Knockout, I completed that. I read Awakening of the Seer for a strong female lead. I could also use sort of a Valkyrie for that. Then for Gooberathon, I had to read for Daffodil or Rebirth, a cover change or republished. And of course for that I read Jade City. And then for Year in Aldia, for Ariel, she had to enjoy solitude and read a priority TBR, and for that was The Arctic Incident, because I wanted to make sure I had something read for the Irish Readathon. And then for Karasu, he brought his wand and he had to read a book under 250 pages, and I read Broken by Rachel Humphrey Daigle. That was only 180. And then also for Gooberathon, Jonquil, which is the other option you could choose, and that meant luck, a random pick. And my random pick was my TBR jar, because I had someone comment on my last video that said I could use that for my random pick, so that's what I did. So thank you so much for recommending that. And I read My Friend the Murderer for that one. And then we had Sufferthon. That was to read a book you didn't want to read, and for that I read Hamlet by William Shakespeare, and I did read it. And then for the Irish Readathon, a book with a green on the cover. For that I read Jade City. And then Irish book with mythology or folklore. I did not get to that yet, but there's definitely still time. I can find something for that. And written by an Irish POC or LGBT plus author, and I haven't done that one yet either, but again, there's still time. For the Irish book that won an award, I read Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. And an Irish book that fulfills a past prompt, I picked the middle grade or YA by an Irish author, and that was The Arctic Incident by Owen Colfer. And then we have a couple more readathons here. So Realmathon, I didn't necessarily pick books that fit the prompt. That one is basically any book I read goes into Realmathon by Covers with Cassidy. And then we have the Keymark Readathon, and that is the March Mavericks. And I'm on Team Tome Readers, and our team host is Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and Kay from Kay's Hidden Shelf is also one of the hosts. And the first prompt is to read an indie book, and I read Seeking Jake Ryan by M.F. Larson and Jessica Bucher. And then we have A Weapon on the cover, and for that one I'm planning to read, but I have not read yet, and that is Towers of Midnight by Robert Jordan. There's a big old sword right there. And Brandon Sanderson. Sorry. I always forget to add his name on there. So I still need to read that one. And then for the third prompt, Hero or Heroine on the cover. And for that one, Jade City. And that is, oh, sorry, I kept forgetting to say it, by Fonda Lee, the first book in the Greenbone Saga. And then it contains a rogue. And for that one, I have a few that I could use for this one, but I went with Sort of a Valkyrie by Melanie Karsak. And then Magic is part of the plot, Awakening of the Seer by E.E. Holmes. And again, I have a ton of books. I mean, Jade City could work for that one too. I have a ton of books that worked out in that one. And then Prompt 9 was Found Family, and I don't actually have one for that yet. We'll see. I have a few more books I need to read, so we'll see. And then for Animal Companions, there is an animal companion, but it's not throughout the whole book. So I used it, but it's a little bit cheating. A little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And that was Colliders by Steve Foley. One of the characters has his trusty golden retriever with him. And then we move into Spring into Reading-a-thon by Completely Melanie. And there are, again, it's a bingo. There we go. And there's 25 spots, and I've finished almost all of them. I still have Holly Festival covers, and that one is to read a book by an Indian author or a book with many colors on the cover. I'm still working on that one. I haven't found one yet. Most of them are like shades of green or shades of blue. It's not like a whole lot of colors on it. The only one I could think of that I might be able to use is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, and this particular book cover for that, which was the cover on the audiobook that I read. But the physical book I got from the library was the other cover. And I also still need to read the Aquamarine prompt, which is water on the cover, which I haven't had one of those yet. So we'll see. Then Cherry Blossoms, read a book by a Japanese or Japanese-American author, which I have not read yet either, but I plan to read Before the Coffee Gets Cold for that one. And then the last one I have not done yet is Aries, and that's a book with a fire on the cover. And I do have some thoughts on that one, but I haven't read one yet. But I have some time. I could pick some random books right now, so I might be able to get to those. So my mid-month check-in so far, doing really well. I still, of course, need to read Towers of Midnight, and I need to read The Metamorphosis by Ovid, and this one is for the Hardcore Literature Book Club from February, I believe. I still have not read this one yet, so I do need to get to both of these. And this is not colorful water or fire on the cover, so that doesn't work for any of those prompts, but we'll see. I am very excited about April, though, because not only am I going to the UK, which is going to be super fun, but it's also the Magical Readathon month. And G from Book Roast has already put all the information out there, and I already have everything picked out I want to read for my classes. Unfortunately, her wonderfully creative mind has already come up with a bunch more callings that you can take. And you know me, I'm going to add on a couple more. So we'll see what happens. But I believe getting close to graduating with my first 2 callings for each of my characters. So we started out with Godseer and Scribe. And this should be, I think, the Autumn Equinox should be my last classes for those, and now I'll have graduated. And then for Ariel, that's Karasu. And then Ariel, she has Master of Elements and Feywild Cartographer that she will be done with. And so then I can just work on the other callings that both of them are doing. And I should be getting to my TBRopoly next week. So hopefully that will be up then. And lots of fun stuff for April. I think that's about it. Handbells is going well. Our concert is in May, so that'll be fun. I will be gone for a couple weeks, but then we'll have a couple weeks before the concert. So hopefully I don't lose too much muscle memory for all those songs. And if you made it this far in the video, leave a green emoji in the comments to let me know that you were here in honor of the Irish Readathon and me finally reading Jade City. And until next time, keep reading.